guys, today we're going to be starting a new series and we're going to be teaching the web framework called Django. Django is a full stack, high level web framework that is built on Python. Now, all that means is that you can build a front end and a back end for a website using only Django and mostly in Python code and some HTML and CSS. So Django has been around for quite a while, and it's used by many big companies such as Instagram and I think Facebook. So it's a pretty popular framework, and it's been built together with probably thousands of very experienced web developers, which have found the solutions to many problems that they will run into every day if we try to build a website without the Django. That being said, the Django does have its own way of doing things, and it's called the Django way. And usually the Django way is the best way because we're not that good web developers compared to the thousands of collaborated work put into the Django web framework. So before I get into downloading the Django, I just want to explain a very high level idea of how the Django works. So now let's start with a website. Let's say I had my website, and my website's called www.stanleyip.me, right? So this first one, and then on my home page I have the www dot again, right, .me, stanleyip.me, and then maybe it links to work, right? Personal websites may have my personal website. You can look at my work. Similarly here, right, I could have something that links about me page. Sorry for the ugly writing, but that's the about me page. So in Django, these things are what they called URLs, right? Each of these are URLs, and depending on the URL, so this is a URL, this is a URL, this is a URL. Depending on the URL that is inputted by in the browser, we're going to have it pointing to apps. So, for example, I may have a work app that has my work related stuff. For example, where have I worked, what projects have I done, just anything about work. And I have this thing called work app, and when somebody puts in stanleyip.me/work on, let's say, Google Chrome, and they press enter, Django will look at that URL and say that, okay, we're going to go into the work app. And that could be also said about the about tab. Somebody could go into about, and then it'll go into the about app, given that I set it up that way. So that's how Django organizes itself. That being said, each app could also have one or more of its own URL. So for example, this could have slash. So we have our website again. We have /work, and then we may have, let's say, web, right? So in my work app, I also have a URL. It in itself has a URL of web. So an app could have a bunch of URLs, and in a Django project, you can have many apps. So that's the idea. And depending on which URL that you put in, it'll point to the right app, right? Now, once we have the app, the next thing is called views. So views is where is probably one of the most important component in the Django. On views is where it handles the logic. For example, if you're on an, let's say, e-com website, right, and you want to, show, on the top right, they always have the cart, or like a shopping bag or something showing you how many items you have, if you have anything in your cart. Maybe I wanted, I want to show the consumer that, oh, there's 2 items or 3 items depending on what they pick. So that's where the logic comes in, right? This makes our content dynamic. This is where our business logic will go in, and how it gets that information. So sorry. In each app, each app will only have one view file. So it's okay if you don't understand everything I'm saying. This is just a high-level idea so that we'll have an easier time later. So in each view, we're going to have how it's going to get its information is obviously from a database, and in the Django they call it model, right? Let's this is a database. Sorry, that's a really ugly database, right? And so it gets the proper data that we need for the website, and it could really add in whatever logic you want, depending on which view, which that you picked. And it's really is just logic. So this doesn't have to give back out a website or like a page, even though that's the most common thing to do. Just think of this as logic, right? You can put anything into logic. So I could have a view that shows a page, but I can also have another view just, processing a transaction, for example. So the final thing is, once it has views, is it has to get the HTML stuff, right? It has to get the HTML and CSS stuff. So this is a thing called templates, and this has the HTML, CSS, and possibly some JavaScript, right? This is what makes our site pretty, right? So on views, we're gonna be picking which template to be rendering out, and then we're gonna be taking out whatever data that we want from our database. So this is handling all the logic, and each app will have one view file, and that view file will have a bunch of functions that for example, a bunch of functions doing whatever logic that you want to. And the most common way is to render out a template that has the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now that's the general idea of this framework, and the whole point is that we have the MVC model, right? If you haven't heard of that. So MVC just means you're abstracting the idea of the database, which is M, the view, which is the business logic, and C, which is the controller, right? The controller lets us know where we are, where are we going? Are we going to work, or are we going to about me? Views is where we handle the logic. Okay, do we need the cart number, or do we need to show the payment number, or do we need to process the payment? And the M is just the database. How are we going to get our data? So there'll be less coding in this tutorial, but this I think this would help a lot for the future. So the next thing, finally, the first thing we'll be doing is just we're going to download pip install. So depending on your terminal, I use pip3, so that it means Python 3, install the Django. I already have the Django, that's why I'm showing this. You should have more lines coming out of your terminal. And I am using Linux, an Apple MacBook, so you should do a similar thing on Windows. So once I do this, what I will do is we're going to start our first Django project. Like I said, right? This whole thing is one project. One project could have multiple apps, and each app have multiple URLs. Each app will have one view and a database. A database for the whole project. So first thing we'll be doing is just to start, a project. And if you have the Django downloaded, the first thing we'll be doing is called, find the directory that you want to have your Django project, and the first line will be just making a project. We're going to do Django admin. So this is from the Django web framework that we just downloaded, and we're going to do Django admin, and we're going to start project. And you can call your project whatever you want. I'm just going to be calling, what should I call it? Let's just say my site, right? So you will see that if I go into my site, that we have manage.py, and we have a directory called my site. So the my site is kind of like the when I go into my site, I will be able to go into my different apps. Right now we don't have any apps, and we will see just a bunch of .py files, which we'll talk about later. So you can see URL files that I mentioned before. But let's just go back. For now, we're just gonna make sure that our site works. And how we're gonna do that is we're going to be running the manage.py. Manage.py is going to have our default settings that we want for our website. We're going to do manage.py, and we're going to run server. So this is going to run a local server, and we're just going to make sure that it works, right? So we're going to run that. So you can see that it is running. It'll say you have a bunch of unapplied migrations. We're going to be talking about that another time. But so we have this, and then how we check is with the link that they gave us. So this is our local server. So if we type this in, just to make sure that it works, you see that it says that the installation works, and we have our project. So this is the first tutorial. We made our project. We understand what the Django is, and an overall idea of how it works. In the next tutorial, we're gonna start building just some simple templates that I explained before, so that we can make something out of it. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you in the next